Hello and welcome to episode 321 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. A huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community because we couldn't make the show each week without your support. And on that note, a very warm welcome to Chris Fincher, who's recently joined our Bobby Stokes tier. So thank you, Chris. Coming up this week on the podcast, FA Cup finalists Manchester City were looking to move second with a win at St Mary's, but they hadn't factored in the dry pitch and a team who didn't want to play. There's plenty to discuss this week. And there are two games left. One of those is against the best team in the Champions League. The other is Everton on Sunday. So we're going to preview that final trip to Goodison Park for you. My name is Martin Starke, and joining me this week, Steve Grant is the owner of SaintsWeb. Alfie House is senior Southampton reporter for the Daily Echo, and Glen is writer of the blog League One -10. And we start with some breaking news. Amazing stuff. Southampton officially not the worst Premier League team ever. Oh, my word. What a day. It's the day that many people thought would never arrive as we finally sailed past that magical 11-point tally. And how we celebrated yesterday. We will get onto that very soon as well. Let's start with an apology, I think, to Taylor Harwood-Bellis. He was right when he said last week, I just don't think it'll be a game where we roll over. Who knew? Certainly not us, and definitely not Matt Hall, who went for a 10-0 defeat in the Predictions League. So cheers, Matt. Two big talking points after the game, obviously. The first, Ruben Diaz. Should we remind ourselves of what he had to say after the game yesterday?
Obviously, every point matters right now until the end. Frustrating to play a team like them. They don't even try to play. They're just wasting time the whole game. I don't even feel like they want to play the game or win the game. They're just sitting around. But it is what it is. We tried every way. Obviously, we had chances. We didn't score, but it is what it is. We didn't score, so we take the draw. We take 1 point and we move forward.
You've been back in the dressing room. Has that been the conversation, the way Southampton have played against you today?
I mean, we always look at ourselves first and obviously understand the process. Obviously, one or two things could have gone better, but in the end, you end up being on top of them the whole game. We created chances. We didn't score them. It's football.
They don't even try. They don't even play, Glen. I thought you summed it up perfectly yesterday in your tweet, so I'll come to you first. Your thoughts on Ruben Diaz yesterday?
Not a lot. I mean, it's funny. I mean, you've all seen what he said there. It's the reaction from everybody in the football world at large has been hilarious. I mean, everyone thinks he's an idiot. So anyone who is not in the Manchester City fan base will think he's an idiot. Anyone in the Manchester City fan base who remembers their trip to League One and Paul Dickoff and all that lot, they will think he's an idiot because they've got a bit of perspective on things. And I think even some members of his own family will be having a word, to be honest. It's just shocking. I mean, I think I've said on here before about the thing that winds me up. I mean, it was about teams like Brighton and Fulham, Marco Silva and Fabian Herzler. It's about entitlement and how they're entitled. You know, they feel that they're entitled to have things all their own way, and they just can't handle it when it doesn't go their own way. I mean, there's been a lot of fingers pointed at Manchester City, and a lot of people, including Alfie, have very rightly pointed out that, they've got £1 billion squad, which they've assembled by, allegedly pretty dodgy 115 charges means. And, they've got all the advantages going, really. And this season, against the second worst team in Premier League history, they've managed a very narrow 1-0 win, which was a little bit squeaky, and a 0-0 draw. So, they've not exactly done particularly well. And it's quite ironic in a way, given the the way we started the season, trying to imitate Manchester City with our inferior players, and it seems that even us, we've found a way to play against that. If the other team doesn't. If City, in this case, don't put you under the correct pressure. I actually ended up feeling sorry for Erling Haaland in the end, because the service he got reminded me a little bit of Ross Stewart at Leicester last week, where he's making runs and he's calling for the ball, and he's just not getting the ball. And when you got a player like that and you don't use him, you got to question what's going on. And I question why Pep left Ruben Diaz on the pitch. If you didn't need any defenders, why didn't you take him off and put on someone who might do something a little bit creative at the other end of the pitch? So, in short, his reaction is embarrassing, and he's been quite rightly called out by virtually everybody for it,
including Alfie's manager, which I thought was quite interesting afterwards. Pep saying that he had no complaints and actually we can do whatever we like.
I mean, Pep always I know it's sort of the backhanded, like patronising compliment, but Pep does always seem to have a fair degree of respect for Southampton. I suppose you would do when your quadruple was ruined by Southampton, obviously famously in the cup a couple of years ago, and they've had a couple of tough games. And look, I mean, Ruben Diaz is right in the sense that Southampton didn't try and attack or didn't try and play. They had a couple of shots. I think both were blocked immediately over the 90 minutes. Obviously, there was no Cour competitors in the team, so James Bree came in. Rusk actually made a couple of changes, brought Wellington in, played without a recognised number 9, so it meant that Kamaldeen Sulemana was up front. And to be fair to Kamaldeen Sulemana, I felt that he attempted to put himself about a bit and actually play with his back to goal and hold the ball up, which is not something that he is known for. And I thought he did. He got around the pitch a little bit doing it, but obviously it meant that consequentially, he isn't good at it, so it didn't work. And it meant he was in the wrong place the rest of the time. There was no chance of a ball over the top or running behind because he was 2 defenders on his back. So yeah, Ruben, he's frustrated, but you just show a bit of humility and a bit of class, really. You're one of the best squads in the world. You failed to beat a team who, are rightly, and we'll get onto the whole like Jamie O'Hara malarkey after game as well. People sort of taking the mick for celebrating 12 points. I think nobody in the ground is celebrating 12 points thinking it's a fantastic achievement and that Saints are the best team in the world at the moment. But they're celebrating 12 points because they're going to be lambasted as the worst team ever. It's going to stick with them, with the fans, with the club, with the city, and they don't want that, and they rightly don't want that, and they shouldn't have that. So I think they're absolutely right to celebrate. And I was in the stands yesterday. I wasn't actually in the press box. So I had a couple of tickets in the itching corner. And that last sort of 20-30 minutes, it was good viewing. I know that I would say that obviously being on the right side of it, but it was intense, it was entertaining. They dug in, they held on. Aaron Ramsdale was absolutely brilliant. Again, he was absolutely brilliant. A couple of big saves. I thought Joe Aribo on at halftime made a real big difference as well, just to the energy, which bringing Leslie Ugochukwu off, it hasn't always worked, but this time it did. So fair play to the lads, to the staff. I think we said last week that this sort of defence first approach was the wrong idea against a team like Leicester, but it's absolutely the right idea against Man City. And how they can have any complaints is beyond me.
Steve, just kind of like last word on that, if you will. And I think Simon Rusk said afterwards, if we go toe to toe with City, then we lose. So it's fair enough, isn't it? I haven't done the maths, but it's got to be a fraction of their budget, and we've just got to find our own way of grinding out a result, which we did.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, they could still have won the game, and then at which point they wouldn't have been complaining at all. If they'd not slung 15 crosses out of play because they were massively overhit every time, then
that'd be the dry pitch, though, wouldn't it? Surely. The sunshine being out.
Yeah, maybe they might have created a few more proper opportunities. I don't think Ramsdale's had a shot to actually save for the first hour. Nothing. Maybe a sort of little dribbler in the first half, but nothing that was sort of extending him or anything. So we kept our shape really well. We forced them into wide areas because we know that. Despite the fact they've got this absolute giant sort of goal bot up front, he's not the best in the air. He's decent, but if you've got enough bodies there and you can defend the crosses, then by all means, let City cross till the cows come home. You're quite happy to defend against that. It's when they want to play those little interplays sort of in the channels and get in behind, and then the little sort of cutbacks to the 6-yard box. Those are the problem areas. And obviously Doku came on at half time and was infinitely more dangerous than McAtee, who he replaced, just by being direct and running. And I thought Bree actually did really well to kind of get any sort of a handle on him, really. Given that he doesn't really play an awful lot, he's obviously way down the pecking order in terms of who we'd like to be playing there. But actually, I thought he was very good in that position. But in terms of City, it's like, well, at the end of the day, lads, they only showed any real sort of urgency in the last 10, 15 minutes when suddenly they thought, shit, we're actually not going to win this unless we pull our fingers out. And if they'd started the game like that, they'd have scored twice in the first 15 minutes, and then they'd have been able to play at the walking pace they played most of the rest of the game at, without any danger. But they kind of did it all in the wrong order, really. But no, I mean, at the end of the day, we set ourselves up in the way that I think everybody would have expected us to set ourselves up, and I'm sure Guardiola's sort of whatever preparation they would have done for us this week would have been, okay, they're going to stick 11 men behind the ball for pretty much 90 to 100 minutes. These are the areas that we need to kind of target to have a chance of breaking them down. And yeah, they didn't manage to do it. I mean, it comes something. Marmouche comes off the bench with 5 minutes to go of normal time, and he's the only guy that kind of looks like he's already up to the speed of the game, like right from the start. Obviously has that shot that pings off the bar. But everybody else was just, it kind of looked like, I mean, it looked like what it was. It was an end of season game that in reality didn't really mean an awful lot. I think even for City, they'll be in the Champions League and they won't worry about it. They got Bournemouth at home next week. They'll probably win that relatively comfortably, and they'll have forgotten all about this by this time next week. But yeah, I mean, for us, we've got over the hurdle. That's the big thing. It certainly wasn't the way that I think most of us expected us to get to 12 points, given the sort of handful of much more obvious opportunities that we've had over the past month or so.
We never make it easy though.
But here we are. Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, that the sort of the last 20 minutes of that yesterday, I as a fan, even as someone with sort of the sort of vested interest in it, I actually found that really fun. And I don't know why. I don't know whether there's this sort of masochistic thing in me. I mean, as I suppose there probably is in all football fans, really, in many aspects. But just the way that it was all bodies on the line. Everybody was as one. The crowd was up. The atmosphere in that last 15, 20 minutes was the best we've had all season.
Yeah.
And it was because the team showed us something. They showed us that they weren't necessarily the sort of shrinking souls that we saw at the King Power last week, and that go toe to toe with one of the country's best sides, a team that's basically dominated this league the last 6 or 7 years. And yeah, you can get something out of it. I mean, let's be honest, we wouldn't be playing this way against a mid-table side. You just wouldn't get away with it. It would be dreadful. But against the top sides, when the resources are so stacked in the opposition's favour, it's basically the only tactic that the lower sides have got, really, that has any chance of working. And for once, for us, it worked this time.
The heat map is hilarious, by the way, if you haven't seen it. You mentioned the 12 points, Steve. The reaction to getting 12 points was mixed. I don't know if you saw this tweet after the game that the club posted on their X account now, isn't it? Sorry if we got your hopes up, and then copied in Derby. Glen, is having 12 points from 36 games worthy of a bit of banter? I thought it was quite funny at the time, but afterwards you kind of go, maybe it is a little bit cringy.
I thought the Ruben Diaz stuff was good from whoever the admin is on the on the X site, social media admin. I thought the Man City stuff was fair enough, because at the end of the day they've said something, one of their representatives has said something really stupid and we've responded to it, so I think that's fair enough. I thought the Derby stuff, Derby have had nothing to do with this really, apart from Robbie Savage, and he doesn't really count. He's not Derby the club. I found that one a little bit tin pot, I have to say. I mean, I'm all for having a go at people and having a laugh, but I thought that one was a little bit unnecessary, to be honest, especially as we've got to play Derby next season. So I hadn't thought about that.
Good point. That'd be stuck up on the dressing room, wouldn't it?
Yeah, why give them anything like that for next season? But no, I thought the Ruben Diaz Man City stuff was funny, but I thought that one was I wouldn't have bothered with that one, but I think he was probably pleased with himself for the Man City stuff that he put out there, so got a bit carried away. But no,
a bit of a roll.
Yeah.
With the Ruben Diaz reel, like Ruben Diaz himself makes the point that we had the chances to win the game, and the reel obviously shows 5, 6, or 7 opportunities where Man City just flunk out of play for no reason, or they tap it to Ramsdale under pressure. So the fact that he thinks he can have a go at the Saints for the way they play just baffles me.
It was remarkable the amount of times that they did the, like, Foden was the main example of the person, because he, obviously he's on the right wing, he cuts onto his left foot, he curls it over the back post, over everybody,
all the way
out of play. It happened quite a few times, and it just shows that this whole, left footer on the right wing, right footer on the left wing thing, if you get it you've only got to get it slightly wrong, and that sort of thing happens. City's main threat as came from Doku, obviously, when he came on, and just add my voice to that. I'm not James Bree's biggest fan by any means whatsoever, but and I was when that matchup got made at the start of the second half, I thought, oh my word,
here we go.
That's going to be horrendous. And he did, to be fair, he did go past him a couple of times, but Bree really stuck to his job well.
Yeah.
He stopped him more times than he didn't, and I think he can be applauded for that. But yeah, City's quality into the box wasn't great. There was one that Jack Stevens sort of sliced over his own bar. That was I thought, that was right in front of me. I thought that was going in its own. I thought that was an own goal written all over it, and got away with that one. His face afterwards, it was the old puffing out of the cheeks. Like, my God, that was close. Yeah, so that was close. So there was that one, and there was the one where I think someone got down.
There was one first half, wasn't there? The Bednarek hit against Stevens' arse and could have gone absolutely anywhere.
Yeah,
unfortunately, just went out for a corner. But
when they brought that Nico O'Reilly on in the second half, and he came flying in on a chance, and he got too close too quickly. So the ball kind of went behind him, and I think Wellington might have got a toe in there to, take it away. So they were the only 2 times that I seriously felt they were going to score until Marmoush came on. Now, I mentioned him last week, and he's good. I can't understand why he's not playing every game. It's just a Pep thing, isn't it? But when I was really glad he only got 5 minutes, and of course he came closest with the shot that hit the bar, which was a totally unlike anything that had gone before from City, where someone was prepared to have a dig, almost a snapshot out of nowhere, and got away with it. But no, City weren't really at it. I see Noel Gallagher left with 15 minutes to go.
Was he there? I didn't see him.
Yeah, apparently so. I assumed the video I saw was from yesterday's game, but hopefully he sticks around a bit longer in the summer because I got a ticket.
Show off.
Yeah.
Steve, on the 12 points thing, a lot of people have had their kind of say on that. Chris Sutton, I think yesterday was one. I know you spotted a couple of others. Chris Sutton saying that the players were a bunch of losers for celebrating the 0-0 draw. Is that fair? Do you think there's a bit of an overreaction from some of the players?
No, the thing that baffles me with all this criticism of, they're celebrating 12 points and a 0-0 draw, it's like, how many other rubbish teams have gone up against this Manchester City side under Pep Guardiola and got a clean sheet and got a point out of the game? Not many. I think celebrating a 0-0 draw in that situation is absolutely fine. Absolutely no shame in doing that at all. And if anybody is conflating that with celebrating, with the players celebrating they've got 12 points, they're wrong. Because I'm pretty certain that the players weren't celebrating, we've got 12 points. They were celebrating, we've just put in 100 minutes of back-breaking effort in the heat there.
Yeah.
And we've come out of it with a point that nobody would have expected us to get. I mean, the draw, I think, was 5-1 before kickoff. City, obviously, massive odds on favourites. I think we would have been 20s, give or take. And yeah, you get a point in those situations. Of course, you celebrate. There's absolutely no harm in that at all. Like the Leicester players got a late equaliser at Forest today. They celebrated in front of the away end. Absolutely fair enough. I don't see the problem. And I mean, people like Chris Sutton has somehow carved a career of just being a curmudgeonly old whinging dickhead, basically.
Trying to stay relevant.
I think someone made the point in our patrons chat on WhatsApp that ultimately they just say things to wind people up, because then more people will call into their
people phone in
shows and have a go at
them. Because there's nobody will phone in to TalkSport on their premium rate number if there's nothing for them to be angry about and argue against the presenter. Because basically those shows, the presenter has free reign to kind of put out whatever message they want. And all of a sudden, I mean, if they're just putting out bland opinions that everyone agrees with, I mean, those phone lines stay completely empty. So you've got to be saying something that is going to make people want to phone in and argue the toss. Say, well, I'm not going to let him get away with him slandering my football club like that. And that's what they're paid for. And I mean, people know this and still fall into the trap. It's really annoying. But commercial radio for you.
Devil's advocate radio, isn't it? Where basically they say something and you think, well, you can't possibly believe that, but it's all about literally establishing a talking point. Now, from yesterday's game, you can talk about Ruben Diaz and his entitlement, and then what else can you talk about? You know, what other angle can we talk about? Oh yeah, we can talk about Saints celebrating when they're bottom of the league. I mean, we've been relegated for a long time. You know, October, some would say, and it's all about individual games and individual moments for us. So in the context of this season, a point against Manchester City is a hell of a result. So what are we supposed to do? Just cry our way out of the ground going, oh, well, we've still got relegated. No thanks. So they're fishing for engagement, aren't they? And I'm sure that even Chris.
We are.
Yeah, absolutely. But half the time, I don't, especially on the you know, some of the TalkSport side of things. That is their MO, is to people like Jason Cundy and that fat skate idiot Jeremy O'Hara. That's their way of engaging people. That's all they're on there for, because they're not particularly good. They're just on there to
Gabriel Bonlahor as well. It's almost like they gather up the thickest of the ex-footballers. Who will just spout whatever. Like you give them an opinion and it's like, well, okay, yeah, I'll run with that then. And suddenly you've got lit up switchboard, and it's you've generated all your money. There's through the advertising and stuff. It's I mean it's a well trodden commercial path, isn't it? On talk radio with this sort of thing, and it's frustrating that people fall for it hook, line and sinker every time.
Well, just to bring it back to us before we finish on this one, Alfie, would you go as far as saying that was the best performance of the season? And who were the kind of standouts for you? It felt like Tyler Diblin was kind of back to his best, I think, after a bit of a rest. He seemed to be a bit more engaged yesterday.
Yeah, I thought, I say Tyler Diblin come out of the team a couple of weeks, hasn't he? And there was a couple of moments where it was nervous. You know, he'd end up turning sort of back to their goal, looking at Ramsdale, and you think he's got two men on his shoulders. You know, he could lose the ball here. It could be a moment where we pay the price, but he ends up finding a way to wriggle through or win the foul. He had a lot of energy yesterday, I thought. Obviously, I've mentioned Ramsdale with a couple of second half saves. I thought Bednarek, when you're given the task of playing against Erling Haaland, I thought he did that immeasurably well. Any of the back three, really, because in the day kept a clean sheet. Wellington, I'd say, made a really good impression coming back into the team. I think we were talking just before we came on air, and obviously, Steve, you made the point of, you know, he can be a little bit rash, can't he? Like, he loves a tackle, he loves getting stuck in. And I said to you three that when I watched him play at half for the under-21s in January when he first arrived, you know, he was munching down the 18-year-olds there as well. He was sliding in, he was pulling shirts. So he is a player who loves to get stuck in. And if he's still here next season, I don't doubt that he'll be up for the sort of physical challenge of the Championship. But maybe he'll have to watch that a little bit and just be a bit careful. I thought Matty Fernandez obviously back to full fitness after his surprise chest infection trip back to Portugal.
And his long trip to Portugal.
Yeah, did 90 minutes.
Chest infection that might have been a surprise to Matty as well.
Did 90 minutes and obviously got the chant when he came off as well. But I think when he came off this time for Wilson, people understood because he ran himself into the ground. Is it the best performance of the season? I think I mean, I can't think of many better ones. Obviously
it's a low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar. The Ipswich game they won was a bit ropey. They had a few big chances. Obviously, the Everton game they equalised about 10 seconds after we scored, and VAR ruled it in. And not any other draws, this is the best one. So I think it could well be the best performance of the season. And fair play to the lads for hanging in on a hot day. It was I think people left St Mary's feeling like they might have got their money's worth for the first time in a while.
And no Carl Walker-Peters either, Glenn. That's a little insight into next year. We could end up seeing Wellington and Bree could be decent players in the Championship, maybe.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I will say that in both the cases of Wellington and Bree, I mean, start with Bree. I've already said that he did really well, but it's the Jack Stevens syndrome that we were talking about the other day. He can have the odd good game. It's can you do it 2 games, 3 games running, and that's been our problems these last 2 seasons in the Premier League. We haven't had enough players who can do it consistently, and that's why we've ended up where we are, because we just haven't had enough good players who are comfortable at that level and can put it in week after week. So he had a good game. It was a very specific task as a fullback. Obviously, it was just defending. We've got this problem. Simon Rusk knows how to set up a team to defend the hell out of it. But when we played teams like Leicester, that's when the fullbacks have got to do a little bit more. So both Wellington and Bree have got to provide at the other end of the pitch and get crosses into the box. Ryan Manning has done it sporadically this season, but I'd like to see Wellington stay in the team for the rest of the season because he needs the games and needs the experience more. It'd be of more benefit for him to play. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Walker Peters, we've heard a couple of things. One said he was ill. I saw someone saying that he didn't want to play and all this sort of stuff. It's hard to imagine that, given his attitude over the last.
Not like him, is it? That's not what we'd expect.
No.
Simon Rusk said he was ill. Obviously, that's the official party line. I would be.
That means he wasn't ill. So Carl Walker Peters was in Portugal with a power cut. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we all know Carl's going, and in a game, I mean, next week against Everton, you would want, if Carl's available, you would pick him. It's as simple as that. He's a better player than James Bree at the end of the day. But if he's not, then James Bree gets another chance to prove he can back up the performance that he produced yesterday.
I know we're going to preview Everton in full, obviously, but do we think that now Simon Rusk has got the 12 points, that he will think about maybe attacking a little bit more? He's been very clear about the fact that he doesn't believe that this team can defend and attack at the same time. And he says the evidence suggests that over the course of the season, he's right. But now that the pressure is off, that the task has been achieved, he's got the 2 points that he needed. Do you think that they will try something a little bit different, or do you think he will just stay exactly the same, do what they've done for the last 6 weeks, for the last 2?
It would be amusing if we just defended the living crap out of it like we did against City and got a 0-0. It would be quite amusing on my level.
I think Everton are probably slightly better equipped to play against that sort of low block because you just lump crosses into the box. Which sort of team would you not want to face who are just throwing crosses at you? Everton is the prime example. Yeah. I think we've got to probably have a little bit more about us. And I mean, frankly, Everton aren't anywhere near as good as Man City, so there shouldn't really.
No, but neither were Leicester. And
I mean, I don't know what the hell the plan was last week. There was no sense of what that was.
You can't win a game without carrying some sort of attacking threat. No. We were never going to win yesterday's game, obviously, and you've got to have an attacking threat. You've got to have an attacking plan. Look, against Leicester. Said this last week. You put Ross Stewart on, don't give him the ball. If you want to score goals, it's like Man City with Haaland yesterday. You've got to think, how does your centre forward want the ball? To give him a chance of scoring a goal. I mean, I actually thought Ross Stewart looked pretty lively when he came on. That's another sidebar from yesterday's game. Won a couple of headers and we actually connected a little bit up front. He got the ball to Archer a couple of times and hopefully that's another sort of 10 minutes on his journey to playing a bit more next season, but yeah, you got to have a plan to get your forwards in on goal, and that's what Cameron Archer suffered from this season. He obviously doesn't want the ball with his back to goal. He wants it in front of him and in the channel so he can get away from defenders and get shots off. Tall Paul obviously needs the ball in a completely different way, but we don't seem to think that way when it comes to joined up attacking. We put Paul on half an hour sometimes and don't put a cross in. It's mad how ineffective we've been at creating chances, and no, they've got to have a little bit more against Everton, because I think Steve's right. At the end of the game, if it's still 0-0, you'll have Beto on there. He's 6'5", and Calvert-Lewin 6'5" or whatever, and they'll be throwing crosses in from all over the place. And
you'll have Michael Keane in the box as well. He's always up there at the end.
Tarkowski will be drop kicking people.
Well, Tarkowski's injured, I think. So there's one that's not there, but yeah.
So no, we have to attack. We have to attack at least a little bit against Everton. Otherwise, otherwise it'll be a hard watch.
Let's just get some names down for Player of the Week. Last week we gave it to Fernandes for the 20 minutes of chance after he'd gone off. I think that takes him to 6 for this season. Tied second with Tyler Dibbling. Ramsdale still in the lead with 7. I mean, we could pick a whole bunch of names, but we kind of need to get it down to 4 for the poll. So who are you saying, Steve? Who's first on that list?
I'm going to go Bednarek, I think. Kept Haaland relatively quiet. Only really had that one opportunity over the top. What was that, about 15 minutes to go, where he buggered up the square pass. And that actually came from one of the rare occasions that we kind of ventured a little bit further forward. It gave them a little bit of space on the break. And I mean, basically immediately after we'd done that, it's like, right, we're not going to do that again then. But yeah, he obviously kept him fairly quiet all afternoon. Got him into a little bit of a shoving match just before half time, which we've not mentioned the referee at all from yesterday. I mean, that was absolutely pathetic from him from pretty much the first whistle. Basically whatever City wanted they got, and the linesman on the Itching side giving a foul against Dibbling on the rare occasion we actually did anything attacking. When he didn't even breathe on the guy, and there was no appeal for a foul, and yet flag wave. Can't be having any skillful players in this team. Thank you very much. But yeah, I would Bednarek for me. But yeah, as you say, I mean, there's quite a long list of names you could put on for this week, I think.
Yeah, nice problem to have. Glenn, if I could push you for a name or two.
I'm going to say James Bree, because I'll never say it again.
Wow. First 12 points and now this.
It's down to expectations, isn't it? It's about what you expect a player to produce and what he actually does produce. That suited him yesterday, just with it all being about defending. He ended up playing against their biggest threat, and in the main, he did a good job. I could equally pick Wellington, because I thought he was good over the other side as well. But I'll go with James Bree. I'd like to make an honorary mention actually to the manager. I know we're not talking about managers at this point, because I think he got everything more or less spot on. The substitution of Leslie Ugochukwu at half time was to stop him getting sent off.
Yeah.
Bringing on Aribo instead of Smallbone, which was his other option, I think was absolutely the right thing to do. Because Aribo had 45 minutes, he could get himself into the pace of the game. I always have a problem with Joe when he comes on with 15 to go, because he's just nowhere near. He's all over the shot and barely touches the ball. But I thought he got involved for the whole of the second half and did well. I thought the bringing on Ross Stewart instead of Tall Paul was also a good move, because he's got a little bit more pace about him, obviously, and he can still win the flick on. So I just thought, bearing in mind what the mission was yesterday, I thought Simon Rusk did an excellent job with managing the somewhat meagre resources that he's got.
I think, and
Simon the back of the stick that he got at Leicester as well.
Exactly. Simon got a lot of stick last week. And obviously, like we all said on the podcast, that we felt that criticism of last weekend was justified. But, I know that he took the Matty Fernandes thing, if not personally, at least fairly hard, as you would, because it was quite a big display of defiance, I guess, against you. And obviously he was criticised all week for the way they played, but he still stuck to the fact that actually this was the right way to do it against Man City, as it obviously was. But it took a brave and I suppose principled manager to do that. So I think you're absolutely right to credit him for that, Glenn.
I know you've mentioned a few names, Alfie. Can I just trouble you for one more, just for the Player of the Week vote?
Yeah, I'll give you two if you can.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, obviously, Glen mentioned Wellington, so I'll say Wellington as well, and obviously
Yep.
Aaron Ramsdale for me as well. Just being in the itching corner, obviously by the goal, not just a couple of saves, but actually just his sort of command of the box. I actually felt that coming out for corners, he got towards most of them. There's one or two where he was a bit far away, but got to most of them with either a punch or a catch. So yeah, Ramsdale was very good again. And actually, Ramsdale, I mean, if you look back at all the games this season, I mean, at least how many results have we had that are positive? 5, 6, or 7, I can't remember. But at least sort of 4 or 5 of them, he's definitely been the key man for me.
Yeah.
It is odd because I sit not far away from Glen, and obviously there's not a lot we can add in terms of the first half because we couldn't see anything because it was all down the other. I think it was
eye strain.
I was looking at the watch, going right. So when has Edison touched the ball? And I think it was about 35 minutes.
38, I think.
Was it 38 minutes? Yeah.
I'll tell you what was funny about that first half was I don't know if the kickoff routine. So City kicked off. And they knocked it back to the central defenders, probably Mr. Diaz. They knocked it back to him. And then they passed it back forward to halfway, and we'd already retreated. there was no press whatsoever. So we were camped 35 yards from goal from the very first second. And that was
set the tone for the afternoon.
That was how that first half went.
Set the tone. Before we get on to Everton, as we head into the summer, how would you like 25% off some beers? As you're probably aware, together with our friends at Steamtown in Eastleigh, we've got our very own Total Saints Pilsner. And is that the last can you've got, Glen?
It's the last one. I was saving it for a special occasion, and drawing a game we'll have to do.
If you fancy getting your hands on some of that, you can get a 25% discount on 24 cans of the TSP. All you have to do is quote this podcast to any of the staff on site at Steamtown Brewery. The offer's only available in person at the pub, and Steamtown have got a great range of beers and food and different ales on the menu. So if you've not been yet, it's a cracking little venue. It's just around the corner from the train station in Eastleigh. And if you fancy 25% off of 24 cans of TSP, just quote Total Saints Podcast to any of the staff in Steamtown in Eastleigh. Right, there are 2 games to go. The final away game of the season is on Sunday lunchtime at Goodison Park. Steve, you're heading up for this one, am I right? Do you think the occasion will get the better of Everton, or are we just going to be passengers for this one?
Oh, I mean, it's either going to go one of 2 ways, isn't it? Either they're going to sort of just crush us and win 3-4-0 and everybody kind of leaves Goodison in the blaze of glory, or we basically come out of there and absolutely mug them for a hilarious 1-0 win, where the defining moment of Goodison Park is the chorus of boos at the final whistle. Before
now you were giving us a little history lesson last week, weren't you? Was it 2003? We played the last game at Main Road and we won that one.
So 2003 at Main Road, which also featured the home team trying to pull some ticketing skullduggery, where they basically shafted us for tickets. We only got half the allocation that we wanted and should have been given, and as a result, the Premier League forced City to give us a load of cheap ones the following year. Now, this time, Everton also tried to stiff us, I'm led to believe, on the full allocation at Goodison. But credit to the ticket office, they stood firm, went to the Premier League and said, look, Everton are trying to mug us off here. And they were told in no uncertain terms, nope, you're going to give the full allocation and it's all going to be fine. So yeah, we did eventually get the full allocation. So yeah, history repeating itself there would be lovely. I think we also did play the final game at Burnden Park, Bolton.
Wow, you're going back a while now.
Back in the mid-90s, which, guess what the score was?
Was it 1-0?
It was a 1-0 away win. So
we were the last team to win at White Hart Lane as well, I think.
Yes.
Stephen Davis.
Yeah, Davis. But that was the year before they left.
Possibly the last team to win at Sunderland's old ground as well. Possibly.
Maybe.
This is a rabbit hole I wasn't expecting to go down. But
that's positive.
Well, that Sunderland one at Roker Park, also 1-0.
There you go. See,
get your mortgage on it, kids.
The Spurs one ruins it because it was 2-1, but it did go some way to getting us into Europe.
For a bonus point, Steve, can you remember who scored that goal when we won at Main Road?
Michael Svensson.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair play. Fair play.
Yeah, I mean that was a cross, a left-footed cross from out wide. I think, like Phil Foden, but it actually met the target. Unlike sailing out for a rubbish goal kick afterwards.
It's going to be an early start for you though Sunday. I mean, it doesn't do anybody any favours really.
No,
does
I'm staying up Saturday. Definitely staying up in Liverpool for a 12 o'clock kickoff. I think that early kickoff kind of suits a lot of us sort of regular travellers, I think, because it means that you'll be able to get a train out of Liverpool on the Sunday after the game. Sunday trains on the West Coast Main Line are always a bit of a pain. So the game being 12 o'clock means you should be back in town centre for probably 3, depending on how long you want to stick around and see what's going on with the sort of whatever closing ceremony or whatever pitch invasion shenanigans are going on at Goodison.
Are they all going to turn up with screwdrivers and hacksaws, stuff like that?
Should do. I mean, I remember back at the Dell, like people were turning up with socket sets. They'd worked out what they needed before that Brighton friendly, and turned up. And I mean, none of the stewards were remotely interested in stopping people taking that stuff in. I mean, I remember someone that actually managed to get like a row of seats, like I think either 3 or 4, like on the entire sort of bar, because he basically managed to unscrew the whole thing in its entirety, lift the whole thing out. And the club basically, I don't think, were particularly bothered that people were taking the seats, because I don't know if you remember back.
It all had to go anyway, didn't it?
Back then. Well, but it was more that they worked out they couldn't sell them. They couldn't sell the red seats because they had some pigment in that basically it was illegal to sell at that point. Amazing. I don't know whether the seats had gone in back when it was legal, and at that point in 2001 it was then illegal, or whatever, however it all came about. But basically the club weren't allowed to sell the red seats, and they'd already said in advance of that Brighton game, red seats can't be sold. So I think there was basically just an implicit
implication.
Do what you like, lads. Don't. We're not going to be too bothered. They were slightly more bothered about my mate carrying out a Carling advertising hoarding. They were slightly more bothered by that. But so
I suppose it depends. Depends if Everton have got some sort of exhibition game at Goodison at the end of the season or whatever.
I think they're still playing women's games at Goodison from here on. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So talk of it, yeah.
My favourite thing about the Doubt was a bit of a tangent, but the Echo ran a competition to win the penalty spot from the Doubt, and I remember this thinking that's a great thing to do and a really cool competition. And then when the dust settled, they've both been nicked, so they had to just call the competition. Have you got one?
Can I confess?
Have you got one in your back garden?
No, because by the time I even got uphill lane to the car, most of it had kind of disintegrated in my pocket.
Just soil. Yeah.
So yeah, I got most of the penalty spot from the Archers Road end. But
Amazing.
it was just crumbled.
Well, I'd entered the competition to win, so that gutted. Glenn, just to bring it back to the game, I mean, David Moyes saying biggest game of the season next week, and he says, and we're ready for it. So this is the one that they're going to want to win.
Well, yeah, of course they're going to want to win it, because it's
biggest game of the season though. Strange.
I'd probably. No, he's just trying to fire him up for it. At the end of the day, it's an end of season. It's a friendly, but within the context of the league season, isn't it? There's not a lot riding on it. I mean, I guess Everton might be able to go up places in the league. We certainly can't. He wants his team to be up for it, because playing against us, there could be complacency amongst his players. I mean, I don't know what sort of characters they got in the dressing room, but I think he's just making sure that Everton are totally focused on winning the game, and to make sure that it's a good day for them. I mean, in a way, it would be a shame for them if it turns into a game that they struggle in. But obviously, we don't care about that. Professional footballers, at the end of the day, you got to go there and do your best. And the fact that they're leaving the ground means nothing to us, really. But no, Moyes will be trying to make sure that he does everything he can to get a performance out of this Everton team, because they can be, as Steve said earlier on, they can be a bit flaky. they had a good win at Fulham, and they've had some pretty rubbish defeats in the last few games as well.
You say that, Glen. I mean, have they? I mean, since David Moyes came in.
I mean, their form had dropped off. They've
drawn a lot of games.
They went 8 or 9 unbeaten, weren't they, under Moyes?
Yeah, they went 10 games unbeaten in the Prem. But what I'm saying is, since that 10 games, so basically David Moyes came in, he lost to Aston Villa in their first game, like 2 days after he arrived. They then went on a 10-game unbeaten run. They won a lot of them. Obviously, there was a couple of draws in there as well. But since he came in, apart from that Villa game on the first day, which, like Nathan Jones, we're not counting, they've only lost to Liverpool, Man City, and Chelsea. They've only lost to teams. I know Chelsea.
Yeah, fair enough.
They've only lost to teams who've got billion-pound squads. They
did toss a 2-0 lead against Ipswich last week.
Yeah, that is a bad result in context. Fair point. But yeah, but by and large, they seem to have a fairly amount of steel under.
Well, that Ipswich game is probably what he's referring to. Yeah. You know, he doesn't want to be complacent. He obviously thought they were complacent against Ipswich and dropped the points. So they're playing a similarly poor team this week, and he wants to make sure that they're up for it. But yeah, I mean, from our point of view, it's a challenge for Simon Rusk to try and pick a team that can go and win a game, as we mentioned earlier on.
Do you think Ross Stewart comes in, Cameron Archer? He's not going to start that game without a striker, surely.
I would have thought Ross Stewart would come in if he's fit. It's obviously always the caveat. You know, I would have thought he would have come in. I mean, I thought Camadine was pretty ropey yesterday, to be honest. You know, it's just moving him into the centre forward position. It gives him more decisions to make, gives him more options, and he just doesn't seem to know what to do when he's given more than one choice. I think you just got to say to him, "Here's the ball, run with it. That's it. Don't do anything else." Just seems very, very hard of thinking as a footballer. No football intelligence. So I would like to see Ross Stewart come in instead of Camadine. Whether he will or not, who knows? Obviously, Everton have got Charlie Alcaraz, which will be interesting. I notice he starts.
Did he get assists yesterday?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah, and they're obviously trying to make their mind up on him as to whether they buying from whatever Argentinian or Brazilian club he's moved to. So Beto will be the main threat, big centre forward. Was seen as a bit of a joke player when they initially signed him. 30 million quid, mind. But he looked awful to start with, but he's now cemented his place in the team, and he looks quite dangerous. You know, against Everton, it's always going to be a sort of a combative, physical challenge. So hopefully we'll be up for that in the same way we were up for it yesterday with Erling Haaland. So yeah, I mean, I'm a lot more optimistic about our chances of not getting blown away as a result of yesterday.
Yeah,
but we do have to do a little bit more, in the other half of the pitch.
We'll do some score predictions. Then anything else on Everton before we wrap it up?
No, not really. Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I'm not particularly going to miss Goodison Park. That's for sure.
Me neither.
It's not been a happy hunting ground for us. I mean, not that their new ground is likely to be much better for us, but just a grim away end. Proper like wooden seats. I mean, about half. I think more or less half the seats in the lower tier are restricted view. Like you can't see anything in that away end. It's dreadful. So from a sort of travelling fan's perspective, it's awful place to watch football. But
go on.
Yeah, if you can get out of there with the result, then all of that will be very much forgotten.
Is the press box any better, Alfie?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, get the world's smallest violin out. I appreciate that it's a privilege to be there, but the press box is also terrible. It's tiny. I don't fit in it. It's like wooden seats, like Steve says. So I won't miss Goodison Park either. But it is a real privilege to be there for the obviously the final competitive game at Goodison Park. So I am looking forward to it from that aspect. All right, let's do some score predictions. Go on, Glenn. What we said?
Oh no, I was just going to say about you're talking about the away and being poor, and getting there is poor. The new ground has got water on three sides, basically. So I don't know how that's going to be.
They've had problems with the test events in terms of people getting away from it. So I suspect there'll be some. Yeah, there'll definitely be some issues next season. But
I mean, to a lesser to a lesser degree, we've kind of got it at some areas a little bit because you've got the water on one side, and if you try and get your car out from sort of Ocean Village end, it is horrific. So I can't imagine that it's going to be problem free at their new ground, but that's not anything we're going to have to worry about for a couple of years at least. Unless we get them in the cup, which would
we'll get them in the cup again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we always get them in the cup, don't we?
League Cup third round.
I forgot we played them this season. Yeah, in the cup, didn't we?
Yeah, we've already beaten them twice. We probably should have mentioned that, shouldn't we?
Then Rúben Diaz with the winning penalty, right? What a player!
The penalty.
We've beaten them twice this season already. That's a quiz question, isn't it? Yeah. Right. Score predictions.
Go on, I'll let you go first.
I was going to say we're going to get beat 3-0 after last week. I thought we'll just get demolished by Everton. Thought we'd get demolished by Manchester City. So they've suckered me in again, and I think we'll go and put in a half decent performance. And I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
Another point on the board, Alfie.
Obviously, I agree with the optimism being sort of restored, but I think they'll get over the line. I think Steve made a good point with the fact that I still believe Sam Rusk is going to play the exact same way. I think that it will be a defence-first operation. I think that they're going to be a much better team at breaking that down than Man City, just in terms of the bodies in the box. So I'll go for a 1-0 Everton win, a late win. Okay, Steve?
Well, I mean, I've got to follow history here, haven't I?
Do it.
So it's going to be a 1-0 away win.
So the follow-up question to that then for you, Steve, is we've obviously got past...
How are we going to score when we're not going to go past the half?
There is that.
Which players
I'm looking forward to the Jordan Pickford own goal.
So now we've got to 12 points. What's the next target? What's the next worst team? We've obviously
15,
got
I think, isn't it?
And can we do
15? I think it's 15, 14 or 15 with Sunderland.
So we could get.
Sunderland are in that equation twice, I think.
Yeah.
And then Villa are on 17. That god awful Villa side from 2017.
That goes under the radar for me, though. When I did a list earlier this season of like the two, I was not surprised to see Sheffield United twice. I knew Sunderland would be there twice. Obviously, we know about Derby, but I did not remember Aston Villa getting 17 points only a couple of years ago, really.
Yeah, and that was an absolutely pathetic side. But I think that was at the time, that was obviously a big thing. And it's weird how it's kind of been forgotten that they spent 2 years in the Championship.
They lost the playoffs, didn't they?
Obviously lost the playoff final to Fulham.
Yeah.
You kind of forget all of this, that if Villa hadn't beaten who'd they beat in the final? I can't remember who they beat. Derby. Of course it was. It's Frank Lampard's Derby. That they beat in the final. If they'd not won that game, Villa quite possibly might not exist now. Such was their financial situation. And that winning that game, and obviously being able to keep someone like Jack Grealish, for example, for a year or two, get the money in for him, and now they've obviously new owners, and they've gone sort of light years ahead. It's mad to think how god awful that side was. And
I know obviously we've gone back down.
Awful.
I know we've gone back down straight away, Steve, but in an alternative universe, you might have been able to say the same thing about Southampton, really. Such was the importance of last season's playoff final. I know we've gone back down and it all went so badly wrong, but I think the extra sort of 100 million cash injection from this year and the extra time just to actually sort out the sort of the wages to turnover and all this sort of thing was really important for this club. I think someone in the board said Adam Armstrong's goal was the most important ever scored by the club. Obviously, there'll be people from the 76 who will argue against that, but such is the I guess the disparity between absolute desolation and the joy of going up. It could have been Southampton.
That's the one good. That's the one good thing about this season is the, like you say, the financial injection. Which, I mean, people have talked about it as being an MO for a football club. I used to remember Norwich talking like this, is that if they were a yo-yo club, I think West Brom did as well. You can gradually get stronger as a result because it gives you that financial injection to enable you to sort yourself out. So obviously there's a massive rebuild needed with the squad, and that's what Jonas Spors is going to be doing. So, hopefully with a streamlined squad of better players next season. It's all about trying to get back to the Premier League and do better than obviously we did the last couple of times.
Which is not hard. See, we'll never give up hope. There'll always be hope.
No,
come on.
Well, as the game is on a Sunday, the live stream of the podcast is going to be on Monday night of next week. So we'll do that same time, still 7:00, but we'll do that on Monday night. So week tomorrow. Any other business? Anything else that's happened this week before we finish?
Yeah, just a final note from me to say that the under-21s are playing in their Premier League 2 semi-final tomorrow at Southampton Park against Crystal Palace. It's a 7 p.m. kickoff. Anybody who lives in South London, like Steve, for example, maybe go down and watch the lads. Palace beat Chelsea 6-0 in the quarter-final. Chelsea, who finished, I think, in the top sort of 4. But Palace and Saints had a similar amount of points by the end of the regular season, so it should be an interesting game.
Do you think they stream the game? Can they stream the game or not?
They certainly can. They might well do. I don't know right now.
They'll, if they do stream, it'll be a very late notice that it's streamable because they'll want people to pay. Yeah, they'll want people to pay a tenner to come in. I don't know how much it is. I assume it'll be about a tenner, but
fair dues.
We'll see.
Fingers crossed. Right, thank you. I will let you all get back out in the garden and enjoy the rest of the weather. You can follow the Total Saints podcast on all the social media platforms. Have a search for @TotalSaintsPod and check out the website to totalsaints.co.uk. There's a link on there to the merch store where you can buy loads of t-shirts and sorts of bits that are getting added all the time. There's loads of cool stuff on there. As I mentioned right at the start, you'll also find us on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with a monthly contribution. You just visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. And each of the tiers comes with different perks, including some weekly shout-outs at the end of the podcast for patrons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tiers. So thank you very much to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer and James Kibbe. They're all in the Francis Benali tier. And also thank you to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Phil Horstrup, Matt Hall, Mark Littlewood, Mike Etheridge, James Bobin, John Bevan and Liam Dempsey, who are in our Mick Shannon tier. Thank you as well to Paul Castle Associates and Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thank you to Steve, Alfie and to Glen. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you again next Monday night at 7:00.